lately?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Co-Creation Station. This is a podcast. It's a podcast where we talk about different things. Some of those things are spiritual magic, the law of attraction, the art of allowing, and how to best enjoy this magical journey that we call life. My name is Collin. I'm a musician. I'm a tarot oracle card reader, and I'm a teacher. And I'm located in beautiful, sunny, actually not sunny today. It's a little overcast, but North Hollywood, California.
And one badass dude.
Thank you.
You're welcome. My name is Stephanie, and Stephanie Orlina, and I am a transformational life coach, and I help people transform their thinking, and therefore their lives get really awesome. And I'm in San Diego, California, and it is cloudy here too.
It's my bad. We really still haven't gotten that location thing down yet, but season 4, season 5, we're gonna nail that. And today we have again with us my wonderful sister, Dr. Kelly I won't give away your location, so you can do your little intro. So Kelly, you want to introduce yourself to everybody once again? Welcome back, by the way. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. I'm Collin Worster. I am a chiropractor in the great state of Maine. I practice in South Portland, which, yes, is right next to Portland. And it is beautiful here today. Beautiful, sunny, 72 degrees.
What?
Perfect day.
It's a little flip, huh? Nice.
All right. Well, every week here on Co-Creation Station, we start our discussion from a different jumping off point. And we didn't really have anything right before we hit record. So we were thinking about what to talk about. And I had this idea kind of rolling around in my mind for a while. And I would always forget when we actually start doing the podcast. I always forget it. But this morning, because we had no other topic, I remembered. And I thought, because I'm a tarot and oracle card reader, and I love tarot and oracle cards and the people who create them and write the explanations of the cards and all that kind of stuff. I thought it would be cool to pull a card and see what it said and then read the description from the author of who created the card. So the deck that I chose is one of my newer ones, and I love it to pieces. It's called the Oracle of the Seven Energies.
Ooh.
And it's by the lovely lady that got me started out in oracle cards, Colette Reed. This came out about a year ago or so. And the card that I drew was very beautiful, and it's called Seeing Beyond. And for those of you on the audio version, it's a purplish, pinkish card with a woman's face on it, and there's a triangle in the center of her forehead with a vortex, actually. Is that a vortex?
Looks like a vortex.
I feel like that is a vortex.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And there are stars behind her, in a night sky, and beautiful.
And is that
third eye?
Yeah, the third eye chakra. Ooh.
Oh, it's the third eye chakra. Yeah. You're right. It just looked vortexy to me, we invented that adjective this morning.
Which is a great place for them to put that vortex symbol
yes.
is in the third eye chakra.
All right, but this is the booklet that comes with the Oracle of the Seven Energies. So I'm just going to read the explanation for this. The Seeing Beyond card. The key concepts of this card are vision, the capacity to imagine something, the ability to look beyond the material world, look beyond the obvious to the eye, the realm of the transpersonal, options and possibilities, getting out of your own way, and discarding your projected outcomes. So the narrative here on these 2 pages is, do you consider things only within the framework of what you already know? Or can you allow yourself to see beyond into the vastness of potential? We are all gifted with the magical ability of imagination, and when we open to it, we become a conduit for a divine vision greater than our own. There are 2 ways to view the world and co-create with it. There's literally the word co-create in this thing. Okay. One is from a face value perspective, where what you see is what you get. The second way is allowing your imagination to see beyond what something is right now and moving into a place that does not yet exist in the material world. In this cosmic playground of possibilities, you see into a future where anything you imagine has the potential to become real. If you use your imagination faithfully and consciously, avoiding the traps of fearful projection and drama, you can connect to any reality you truly want to experience. When you open yourself even further, you're often gifted with a divine vision. As a practice, you can reimagine the vision over and over to strengthen it. As you channel these visions through you, you become a superconductor for the world. Today, know that your vision, what you have imagined forming in the invisible, will be delivered into the material world. Do not worry about the timing of things. That is in the hands of the universe. Your job is to continue to imagine, take a few steps forward, and then imagine some more. The universe's job is to make it real. What a fabulous partnership. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. It was great. Peace. Mic drop.
Drop the mic. My mind just went. Whoa! Oh my God! I would buy that deck just for that card and to read that, because that I just kept thinking, Collin, reread that last sentence. Just reread. Yeah. Wow.
There's a couple of like new phrases that I want to like just keep using in there. There was the one of them was, I lost my page. Yeah, the cosmic playground of possibilities.
Ooh, cosmic.
Let's hang there. Hang in that. Sounds amazing.
Playground of
and
possibilities.
What's the other thing she said? Oh, you become a superconductor for the world.
Let's do some super.
Who doesn't want to be a superconductor for the world?
Freak, yeah. What was the other one? Using imagination faithfully, something.
Use your imagination faithfully and consciously, avoiding the traps of fearful projection and drama.
Yeah. Because I think we do that kind of naturally. We've gotten into the habit of doing that.
Yeah.
And so it's like shifting, pausing and then turning and going in a different direction. Noticing. Yeah. So what I've been doing is noticing how I feel when noticing how I'm feeling, and then seeing like, oh, why am I feeling this way? Oh, because I'm doing that. I'm projecting in a negative way. And then they're like, oh, that's the only reason that I feel this negative emotion is because my higher self, who I really am, is only focused on wanted, and when I focus on the lack or the unwanted, that's my emotional guidance system working, and so that's what our emotions are for. And I wasn't taught that. Most of us aren't. That's what our emotions are. It's a guidance system. It's not like something's good, bad, right, or wrong. It's just that guidance. And so that's why I think what we're doing is so important, and what so many other people are doing. And that's why I love Abraham's work so much, is I'm learning how to work on my behalf instead of against myself, which is that using imagination faithfully and consciously, that it's really like we all have the power within ourselves to create and be, do, and have anything we want. And I wasn't taught that. I was shown by others that it's outside of myself, that it's not within me. And that's like owning our power. Like that's where, woo!
Yeah, I think that was really powerful for me, because I feel like that's one of the issues I really have worked on a lot, but continue to need to work on in terms of my thinking, which is, and Kelly and I have talked a lot about this in our family, but I think it's pretty common that you just sort of, when something is a particular way, like if you're in a job you don't like, or your relationship isn't going exactly the way you want, or, you're something's wrong with your car and you've had them looked at 3 times and they can't figure out what it is. Like, you just, like, in our family, like growing up, it was like, there was this kind of idea that like, if something is actually, whether it's good or bad, like it will just continue forever indefinitely. Like if this situation has gone on for a little while, that means it will go on forever. And all we can look forward to is what is, and there isn't anything, outside of that. And so that's sort of how my mind was trained growing up. And I will have conversations with people, and somebody will throw a new idea at me. And I gave a couple examples in friend time before we started recording, where it's like, my financial advisors recently were just like, could you get your car insurance is kind of high, even for Los Angeles, Collin. Like, could you lower it a little bit? And I had been thinking about all the accidents that I had, most of which were not my fault, by the way. But I had several accidents. I had an above average number of accidents in a short period of time, and that raised my insurance rates. And what I had been focusing on anytime I thought about car insurance is, well, I was lucky to get that. I was lucky that any car insurance company would take me after that. So I guess that's the best I could do. And just my financial advisors suggesting to me, and they didn't say like, you definitely need to go find a lower rate. They just said, why don't you open up to the possibility that you could find a quote and it might be a little bit less than the company you're with or whatever. And, even if it's, $30 less or $10 less, like that'll be, $10 a month is $120 a year that you'll be saving. And literally, I'm not exaggerating at all. 4 days later, I got a letter from my current insurer that said, because of your loyalty to our company and because you've been a good driver over the last couple of years, we're lowering your monthly payments, by more than 50%, which was insane. And the thing is, I hadn't imagined that possibility. Like, I had put the gate down on the universe bringing me stuff from my vortex because I had this limiting belief around car insurance that, like, well, it's high, but it's the best I can do. And just that one suggestion from my financial advisors of like, open up to possibilities that you haven't thought of. And I never would have, you could have interviewed me last week for an hour and said, list all the possibilities of you lowering your car insurance. And that one I wouldn't have come up with it, and that's the thing, because the universe and source has access to everything, like we only have access to things that we can sort of see and touch and think of.
A little tiny bit.
Yeah. And if we can really practice, like, I'm just going to take this step to open the door, and I'm just going to say, let's just, imagine that there is such a thing as a lower car insurance payment for Collin, then that allows the universe, like, oh, you're letting me determine the how and the time. Oh, great. All right. Yeah, here's all the stuff from your vortex.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Cool.
Cosmic playground of possibilities.
Yeah. Which the funny thing is, it's really, I get into conversations, and of course it drives me nuts because I'm the one, I do it too. So anytime I experience somebody doing something I'm trying to not do, it's like, oh, why do they do that? It's like, why do you do it? But when I get into a conversation, and this happens fairly often, where someone is telling me about an unfortunate situation, a negative situation, a situation that's making them uncomfortable, or they're feeling emotional pain over it. And they're basically, their story about it is convincing me that, like I said, like what is going to perpetuate indefinitely, and there's no other options, there's no other possibilities. And it's always so clear to me that, like, what are you talking about? Like, of course there's other possibilities, but we can really get into that, like, especially if something is painful or uncomfortable. It's almost like I feel like it can evolve as a defense. Like when you get sick of something for a few weeks or a few months, it's almost like one of the tactics the brain sometimes uses is, well, let's just accept that it'll be this way forever. And then we won't have to confront it as this daily problem. We'll just be like, oh, well, this is, I know it won't change. Like there's some like weird safety or comfort in just going, well, I guess it can't change. I'm over it,
Yeah, protecting ourselves.
Yeah.
So seeing beyond, I really like that, because seeing beyond in the playground of possibilities, in your story, like you couldn't see beyond what you were currently living.
Yeah.
And yet it shifted, it changed.
Yeah.
And apparently you were in the vortex enough, in the allowing state enough, that you allowed it to happen.
Yeah.
Which is really awesome.
Yeah.
So seeing beyond, like sometimes I get stuck in that where I have a situation, I'm like, well, it's been this way for so long.
Yeah.
Like, how can X, Y, or Z happen? No, it won't, because it's been this way for so
Right.
long.
Yeah.
And yet I love the card. It had so many delicious things in it, but just the title, Seeing Beyond, is like, okay, what else is possible? And things change all the time. Like, some Colin's holding up the card like, that's all we can see is not his face. And just being like, oh, things change. They change all the time, but sometimes they just keep changing to the same thing.
Well, that's what I was going to say is if you look, anybody, like when I'm talking to somebody who's like convinced there's no way to change something, if I were to ask that person, is there anything in your life where you didn't think something was possible and it happened? Everybody's going to say yes. Everybody's had something happen in their life that they thought was impossible and it happened. And it could be something very, mundane or something. Like they never thought that, their best friend would go into the army or something like that, But I mean, we've all had that experience of like, we think we know how our world, the bubble we were in as we move around the world, we think we know everything about that and that we know what can change and what can't. But then we constantly have the experience of something surprising us, like that's why the news exists, it's like, oh, guess what? Something you didn't know could happened today, and like the things that are the most like that are the things that the news media gets so excited about. They're like, oh, we have something that nobody saw coming. But it's like, again, on Thursday, like, and we had one on Monday, like, like this is not a new thing. We act like it's a new thing. Like, can you believe that? Can you believe that something we didn't think of happened? And it's like, yeah, because like it happened 2 days ago also.
Kelly, what stood out to you? Was there something that you can think of now that stood out to you when Collin was reading that?
Yeah, I loved what was said about the timing of things.
Mm.
Can you read that again, good. Collin? Do you have that open to that page? Oh, it's such a good reminder.
So of course I've lost the book. Okay.
That was a good one too.
And it's almost like physical pain listening to listen to that. But it's so important.
Oh yeah. Today, know that your vision, what you imagined forming in the invisible, will be delivered into the material world. Do not worry about the timing of things. That is in the hands of the universe. Your job is to continue to imagine, take a few steps forward, and then imagine some more. The universe's job is to make it real.
So my response to that typically would be, but what about the timing?
What about how I get to control the timing? It feels like...
Can we talk about that a little bit? We didn't really address that in the description of the card. Yeah. That's tough. I mean, for me, that is the hardest piece of it. And to look beyond, to not to quote the card, but, look beyond I think for me, it's about not considering the end result that I want the end of the story. So for, I always think like, well, once I get there, then I'll be good. Then I'll have this and then I'll have that and everything will be good. And it really, as much as it, it kind of is like fingernails down chalkboard, it's about the journey. It really is. Yeah. And one of the, that's where the juice is in the journey. And then when I'm not a huge Miley Cyrus fan, but I heard one of her older songs that I used to hear all the time in the radio in Georgia when I was down there, but it's called The Climb. Who knows The Climb? Oh, no? All right. So basically the whole song is about, I'm always going to, there's always going to be something ahead of me. That's who, not only that's who I am, I always look for more, but I'm always going to want to move. That's one of the lyrics. And so, that's the part. It's not, so what's the final quote? Anyway, it's not how fast you get there. It's not what's waiting on the other side. It's the climb.
That's a really great. There's like 3 points I want to make on that real quick if I can. Yeah, first of all, I think one thing that helps me in understanding that process of letting the universe really arrange the time is like I try to think of like higher power of the universe, however you understand that entity, as having like this master supercomputer that runs everything literally in the universe. Like it literally runs how your fingernails are growing, like how the rivers flow, like how baby birds are born, like everything. And if you think about how smart that being would have to be to run that supercomputer, like put in all the controls and program everything so that everything works out, the way that it works out, like, and then say, oh, well, I'd like to come in and I'd like to push some buttons. Like, there would be, I would hope that there would be guards outside the room and be like,
great analogy.
Thanks for volunteering, but we're good. Like, we have somebody who knows how to run the board. Like,
don't go
not
jack
just
it up.
like, have you ever seen the board, sir? And you're like, no, but I just have a good feeling that I will press the right buttons. Like, we're gonna pass. Thanks. That's one thing. Great. It's not because the universe is like mean or evil or it wants to hold stuff from us. It's just when you think about like all the things that have to align over such a long period of time to make something happen in the universe, it is way more complicated than you could possibly fathom as a human being.
Exactly.
And that's why, and it's sort of like, don't do that to yourself. Like, don't put yourself in a position where you have to push the buttons because you don't have the manual, you don't have the training. It's not your job. Like, just get out of the room. Leave it to the people who are already there.
Get out of the room. That's great.
The other thing I love in Abraham, this was a big light bulb for me, and I don't think we've ever talked about it on the podcast before, is when Abraham talks about, because I love what Kelly said about the journey, what you said, Kelly, because she said, when you take a vacation, you start at home and you end at home. So you could just like do a little hop on your living room floor and go, well, that was my vacation. I'm right where
I'm coming back home, so why should I even leave?
Yeah. So that was my vacation. Yeah. And that really helps me understand that, like, oh, okay, like you go on vacation to have fun out there, and of course you come home. And the goal isn't to get something. The goal isn't to go on vacation and then become CEO of a like. It's to relax. It's have fun. It's enjoy life. There's no for most people, there's no written goal other than just enjoy my life during that time. And that's really what everything is. But a lot of times in our non-vacation life, we just assign these things of like Kelly was saying, well, if I don't hit this specific goal in this specific time frame in the way that I think it ought to happen, then I'm just going to be miserable. I'm going to be upset, and it's sort of funny how on vacation we very easily take on that attitude that we really need all of life, Final thing, I actually want to ask Kelly because, you were talking about the outcomes. We've talked about Mike Dooley, one of the guys who I love in The Secret, and he talks about the terrible house, stay out of the house. But I wanted to ask you, Kelly, if you could talk about this, because I think one thing that might confuse people when they start, if they watch The Secret for the first time, or they listen to Abraham for the first time, they're just learning about this stuff. It's like, wait, I don't understand. I'm being told visualization is this, imagine what I want in the future is part of this thing, but then I'm not supposed to, visualize how soon or when, and I'm not supposed to imagine exactly how it happens. Why am I asked to imagine a future outcome and focus on it and feel the feelings that I will feel when I have that, when I'm not supposed to get into the timing or the hows? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Wow, that's a big question. Wow.
Is there any other kind? Few good men.
Is that another? Okay, I was going to say.
Yeah. I'm all Jack Nicholson. I'm all Kermit Justin.
Yeah, that's huge. I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, probably if I thought long and hard about it, I might. But, for me, it's just trusting. You know, what
Mhm.
Stephanie said earlier, you know, the universe just says, trust me, trust me. And there
Yeah.
have been so many times in my life where I've just, especially, I would say in the last 5 years or so, where I just literally, I'm saying to the universe, this can't be right. This can't be. I've literally said this out loud to the
Yeah.
universe several times. This cannot be your intention. This cannot be correct.
Mm.
And I keep getting over and over again, it is. And you may have to tweak your thought process, and you may have to tweak your perspective, and you may have to change how you do things, but this is correct. That is one of the hardest things for me to digest, and to trust in that process. And honestly, anyone that has studied medicine, the human body anatomy, you know, Collin, when you just described the universe and how it works as that big computer system, and we're knocking on the door saying, yeah, but I'm sure I know better than you, and I can just press a couple buttons. If you studied the human body at all, you will, it is almost impossible to reject a thought of a law of physics, of a law of, laws of the universe, that there is something, there's a power greater than us, call that what you will, that has led to the creation of this thing. The human body is so intricate, and it has so many wires and computer chips, and it does it all on its own.
Yeah.
From conception, with no interference. It's just, and my best friend, who actually went through chiropractic school before I did, she was, as I recall, she may correct me on this, but as I recall, she was like on the agnostic side, on the side of like, I really don't think there's anything out there. Agnostic isn't the right term.
Atheist.
Thank you. Atheist. Sorry, agnostic. I'm really not sure there's anything out there. And she went into chiropractic school, started learning about anatomy and physiology, and cadaver lab, and was just like, yes, there is something out there. There has to be. This did not happen by accident. This is not anything but a divine design somehow. And that, nice. And to me, that's, so we're part of that. I mean, that grand computer, we're part of that grand computer. And for me, my life gets so much better when I just accept that, and I don't try to drive the computer that I'm a part of.
Yeah.
When I, allow, I mean, that's such a great word, allowing.
I always thought, like, I'm a big believer in science. I fully support science 100%. I think science is a part of the magic of the universe. It's not like opposed to the magic of the universe. But it did always kind of strike me when I was learning basic things in like 8th grade biology, or physics in 11th grade whenever I took that or whatever, that like there's a lot of stuff that's like, oh, like when a sperm and an egg, for example, when they get together, they form an egg. And I was, even as a little kid, I'm like, why? Like, why is it when two things bump into each other, they just become something else that then grows and has like a, could have 100-year journey of growing into like a complex human being? Like, why does that happen? I mean, when I take if I was a little kid and I take two marbles and I have them bump into each other, they don't turn into like a marble baby that then becomes like, a professor somewhere. Like, that doesn't happen. Like, there's got to be some, like, what, I understand it's a mystery, but it's kind of funny how we talk about these things of like, yeah, when this molecule of this element combines with the molecule of this element, there's a gigantic explosion. And it's like, well, where the heck does the explosion come from? It's like, no, that's just what happens. And I'm always like, well, okay, but we're obviously not in charge of that. Like, we didn't decide that, when you put two molecules of hydrogen and one of oxygen together, you get water. Like, we didn't do that. There's something else doing that,
something greater than ourselves.
Yeah.
Something greater than all that is.
I think my understanding of the visualization versus trying to control outcomes thing is that, and I just feel like Mike Dooley explained this really well in a video I saw one time where, he said the thing about visualization is what you're actually trying to get to is changing your vibration. You're trying to get yourself to feel really good.
That's what it's doing, is shifting
having
the vibration.
That,
so we're matching the same frequency.
Yeah, like believing in it, because your brain, and there have been many studies about this, your brain does not know the difference between when something's happening in real life and when you're imagining it to the most vivid extent.
Or reliving a previous experience.
Exactly.
They're all three the same because we're doing it now.
Yeah.
Your brain doesn't know the difference.
Yeah.
So he helped me understand that visualization, like if my dream is to have, a 3-story house on the beach, that if I sit down and I'm being very specific about the details of the house, like I'm in my imagination and I'm seeing the view from my bedroom window and I'm seeing the staircase and I'm seeing what color the carpet is. The point of that is not to, again, run into the control room and hit the buttons so that I get the right carpet. The purpose of that is for it to be so real to me in my imagination that I feel the amazing feelings of actually having it, even though it's not here. And what that does is it changes my vibration, and it changes what I'm attracting, and it tells the universe this is what I like, bring me more of this thing that I like, bring this to me. And so, but I think a lot of people legitimately and understandably get confused about that, because it does, when you just hear your first explanation of using visualization as part of the art of allowing, you sort of go, oh, okay, so I'm in charge, I guess. I just have to, instead of making sure I do a bunch of things in the outside world to get the car, I'm in control because I'm going to sit here and I'm going to visualize being in the car, and that will control the car into coming on my schedule and my way. It's like, no, that's not the point. The point is just to get you in a place where you're opening the door so that the universe can bring it in the best way possible.
And how fun is it that is our part? Like, my part is to begin seeing myself living, being, doing, or having what I want, feeling the emotions of being at the end result and having the experience, because that feels good, and then just that's like my part. That's all I have to do. Because that helped me get into the receiving mode. But then circumstances and events occur, like what you were talking about earlier, about you had no idea you could lower your insurance. You were like, no, whatever.
Right.
But you're just just somebody planted the seed of the possibility of this happening.
Right.
And then it's such a great story because you didn't even reach out to them, but then they sent you a letter and it was like a price that you couldn't even believe was possible. And that's what happened. It's really that simple.
Yeah, it's aligning your vibration with the vibration of what you want. And one of the things, I think it's Florence Scovel Shinn, pretty sure, she wrote, one of her affirmations was, bring me this, its equivalent or better. Because again, we don't necessarily know exactly, like I may think that I need a Camaro. And I remember when you lived in Cincinnati, there was this awesome old house on the corner, diagonally across the street from your apartment building. And I was like, I thought at that time, Chris, how old was I as a kid? Oh my God, that was the house. I want that house. I want that house in Cincinnati. That's all I want, right? And the house was probably like 200 years old. It's one of the older homes in the historic district and all that stuff. Well, nowadays, that's my perfect nightmare. Thank God I did not get that house. I couldn't have handled that house in a million years.
Nightmare.
But really, what I said, I actually took a picture of it, put it in a scrapbook, and I said, God, give me this house, its equivalent or better. Yeah. And I definitely have better today. I don't own a 200 years old house, and that's lovely.
I like that. This or something better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think one of the places where people, because I find that when we talk about the art of allowing and law of attraction, there's sort of these major categories that seem to come up a lot. And one is romantic relationships or partnerships. I want to be in a great relationship. Job, I want a great job that I enjoy, that pays me abundantly. Home, I want a home that's nice, that feels safe, that feels good. So there's these high level categories, and I feel like one of the ones that sucks people in is the dating relationship thing. And I think like the example that I see working out the wrong way in terms of what you just said, Kelly, is some people come in convinced that they know who they're convinced who their soulmate is. And they're like, I have to get this guy, or this gal, like they have a boyfriend or girlfriend, but they're all wrong for them. And I know they are. Like, we have this connection. And like,
oh, no.
Every time I see him with his girlfriend, he's all like, she's mean to him and he's sad. And then like when we hang out alone, we're like talking about all his interests and we're passionate about it and we have such a good time. So I know he and I are supposed to be together. Like, I know it. So now I'm going to use the law of attraction. I'm going to work with the law of attraction. Whatever I have to do, I'm going to read the books, watch the videos, and like I'm going to like make sure he and I get together. And like usually when I see somebody say that on a video to someone who's kind of practiced in the ways of the art of allowing, it's like they have to talk them down out of that, of like, the problem that you're creating there is you're limiting so much by picking one person who's on this earth right now that you're eliminating billions of other people on the planet. And there's things like you may think that you would be super happy with this person, but you're experiencing them in a completely different role. Like, they're in a relationship, in my example, like, so your contact with them is not as partner, your contact with them is as like friend or whatever, while they're in this other relationship. You have no idea what they would be like with you, what your dynamic would be if they really were single and you got together. And if you leave the name of the person out of it, you've just increased the possibilities literally by billions. And if you just focus on what do you really want to feel, what do you want to do in a relationship? Like, how do you want to spend your time in a relationship? And while you're doing those things, how do you want to feel? Yep. Then that gives the universe like that. I can bring you no problem, because I can pick between, all 7 billion people on the planet and find the one who will make you feel like you want to feel,
And the universe remembers every little request that we've ever made. I don't even remember all the little requests, because sometimes it's so quick that I'm not even my mind can't even process, and spirit remembers everything and can put it all together in this one perfect experience, person, thing. And it always blows my mind when spirit will bring me like an experience and I'll receive like 5, 6, 7 different things that I've wanted. A person, a feeling, a gift, whatever it may be. I've had that over and over again. And I know Collin has, and you have, Kelly, and so many people who are listening have had that too, if you stop and think about it. It wasn't just one thing that I got from that experience. It was multiple things. And that is how incredibly, like you were talking about earlier, Kelly, about how just stop and think about our human body. Like, I don't be like, okay, I gotta breathe. Okay, I gotta pump my blood right now. Oh, what are my arteries doing in my hair? And we don't do any of that. We don't even think about our bodies. And yet there's this whole world going on that we have nothing. Like, I couldn't even do it if I wanted to. And it's not my job anyways. And I think that's what we're talking about here, is like, all this stuff, it's not my job to make it happen. But damn, I sure think it is. And I think I know the best way, and my way is the only way. And boy, I just hurt myself every time by that limited thinking. Yeah. And it goes back to the whole thing. I think part of my continuing journey is to trust. Like, trust God, like trust spirit, trust the universe. Because I have so many examples of getting what I want, and in a way that I never even thought was possible. And yet I get it time and time again. And so
and don't panic. I mean, one of the things I had a friend of mine who watched The Secret back when I first watched The Secret, and he was like, okay, so this girl at work, I want to date her. So what I'm going to do is use the law of attraction, and I'm going to get this girl to be my girlfriend, and then I'll believe in the law of attraction. If it doesn't happen in 2 weeks, and I'm like, did you get a beer during The Secret and miss the whole part? Because, geez. But
Oh,
he
Kelly,
was
I love you.
panicked because he thought, if I don't include her in this visualization, in this intention, then I'll lose her.
Yeah.
And what is so consoling is what is for you will not pass you.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
if this person is for you, what you do can bring it, who knows, might bring it about sooner or later, I don't know, but it won't, nothing that, if you use the art of allowing, it's not going to send the right person away.
I think that's, I keep trying to work towards a wrap up here in this episode, and it's like everything's like, oh my God.
Are we at time? No.
But I mean, I think for me as a musician, that's a really powerful thing, because every time you say that a lot, Kelly, and I appreciate you reminding me of it, because I believe it very strongly. Like that, and one of the incredible things that I sort of forget about Jerry Hicks, the husband who passed away a few years ago, of Esther Hicks, who channels Abraham. In the DVD extras of the film "You Can Heal Your Life" from Hay House, he says that he believes that we know what we actually want, like when we're very small, like when we're 3 or 4 years old, we actually kind of know what we want out of life, and we end up getting it. Like by the end of our life, in some way or other, you can kind of chart your journey and go, yeah, that is kind of what I wanted. And I remember
I cry.
when
So
I was at my grandparents on my dad's side. They have a house on a lake in Maine that now my aunt owns after they passed. But I remember when I was very young, I would go to my grandparents' house on the lake during summer, and I would make these pictures with crayons, and it was just sort of like where I wanted to live and like what my life would be like. And I don't have a lot of specific memories, but I remember I was living in a very sunny place where it was warm all the time, and it's like, it took me, I had been interested in moving to California for many years, but I didn't get here until I was 43 or something like that. And, but when I look back at that, it's like, oh my gosh, the crayon pictures I was drawing, when I was like 5 years old at my grandparents' house, and I didn't know what I was, like I wasn't saying like, oh, this is what I want. I was like literally just sort of like creating what I thought would happen, in crayon.
Heart knew, right?
Yeah.
Your heart.
And it's like, here I am in North Hollywood, where, except for today, it's sunny every day. And, and I think that's, but it's funny because the thing about the musician thing is sometimes when I think about that, because I started, and actually Kelly was in my first band, so we started out together, but I started fairly late in life. I mean, I was 34, something like that when we started our first band. And now it's been, 16, 17 years. And my band isn't globally famous. Like we're not, packing, it's COVID now, but like even right before COVID, we weren't packing arenas. Like we're still kind of a small young band here in Los Angeles, and I'm 51 years old. And part of me is like, I would get into this thing of like, it's, like Kelly was saying before, it's wrong that I haven't become this big rock star yet. It's wrong. And yet, almost on a monthly basis, I learned something that I know would be number one, would be super helpful if I got famous next week, and would really make my life difficult if I was a famous musician and I didn't know that. Like I've learned so many things just in the last few years, especially 2-3 years, about myself and who I am and what I need and what's a good way to take care of myself. And the other thing is that I love making music and I love performing and I love making records and stuff like that. And my understanding is, because that is still in my heart, my job is to pursue that. But what I also understand in the background, and this is a tricky one, is that it may not be my destiny. It may not be in my best interests, ultimately, to be a world famous rock star touring the world. That doesn't mean I shouldn't pursue it, because right now in my heart, that's what my heart is telling me, like, keep pursuing that. But it could still be that by pursuing that, I find something that I like even more, that again is beyond, it's beyond my current thinking. It's something I just can't imagine right now, because I'm in this reality, I'm in this part of clock time as in the timeline that we're actually in. And I just, And that's a tricky one for me because my doubt and my fears and stuff will try, well, maybe you shouldn't be a musician. And that's what I try to make sure I don't do. It's like, no, I check in with my heart almost every day. Like, do I still love writing songs? Do I still love performing? Do I still love making records? Yep. So that's what I should follow. But that doesn't mean that I know exactly how the best life for me is going to work out like 10, 15 years from now. I might not be a famous musician, but what I can guarantee is that if I keep following my heart and working with the universe and not blocking things, I will be way happier, have way more of the stuff I truly want that truly makes me happy in 10 or 15 years, regardless if that specific career path that I can think of, getting on the cover of a magazine and all this kind of stuff, so that's a tricky one, but I really appreciate it when we're talking on the phone and Kelly says, what's intended for you won't pass you by. Every time it happens, I'm like, it feels like being Def Leppard has passed me by a lot, but it's true. Like if my journey on this earth is to not only be an amazing podcast host, but also be a world famous, then it'll happen.
That's already happened. You can check that box.
Thankfully, yeah. But yeah, that's a tricky one. I think it's tricky for a lot of people. That's a tough belief for people to really buy into, that like there's no way, even if I sabotage myself as much as possible, there's no way that something that's truly intended for me will miss me before I die. Like if it's truly intended for me, every part of the journey I'm supposed to have in this life will happen with or without my help. It'll just be easier and more of a fun ride if I put up less resistance.
Which is back to what you were saying earlier, Kelly, about enjoying the journey. You're enjoying the journey right now because you are making time for your music and doing other things, like pulling the cards and doing all these other creative things that you love doing that make your life rich and happy now. And we're always going to want, and there is, our future selves, but it's like, as we're going along, it's like, what am I doing now, today, and tomorrow to feed that part of me that makes me want to get up and enjoy life. And
if I think about it, it's like, because I really wanted to, my first band, Victor Bravo, of which Kelly was the original lead singer. But my first band, once we really got rolling in New York City, I really wanted to be a world famous rock star. I was doing visualization, but I was also being like, I need to. And if I had become a world famous rock star from Victor Bravo in New York, there would have been no need for me to ever move to San Diego. I may have moved to LA, but I never would have moved to San Diego, I don't think. There wouldn't have been any purpose. I moved to San Diego because I wasn't a famous musician and things were up in the air and I felt like I needed a break from a mega city. Right. So I did a year in San Diego and I met Stephanie and I met all these other amazing friends. This podcast wouldn't be happening if I had become, all of the stuff I've learned about the law of attraction and art of allowing. I wouldn't have learned it. I wouldn't be able to pass it on. So there's just too many. That goes back to the control room thing. There's too many buttons. Like as convinced as we are that we think we know that how the timing should be and how it should happen, and that we're only going to be happy when we get to outcomes, not the journey. It really is better if you let the control room people do their job. They're very good at it, and enjoy the ride, no matter what it is. Mm-hmm. Was that an end point? Did I get us to an end point? No.
And all
really trying to bring it home there.
All these little detours that we make has helped you become who you are today.
Exactly.
All of us, all these little, why? And it's like, no, there was a purpose for all of that.
Yeah. I think you just got us to the end. That's awesome. Well done, Stephanie. Well, thank you both for today. This was amazing.
Thank you, Collin.
Kelly. I quite often
we love having you on.
Back.
Yay, we love having you on.
We're really glad you could be here. That thing you said about the human body was very powerful for me. I liked everything you said, but that was
great story.
We hope you have enjoyed it today, this episode of Co-Creation Station with Collin and Stephanie and our special guest, Dr. Collin Worster. If you liked what you heard today, whatever platform you're listening to us or watching us on, if you can subscribe or follow us or give us a review or like us or favorite us, whatever you can do. We really appreciate it. It really helps us out a lot and reach more people.
Share us?
Yes, share us. share me and Stephanie and Kelly. Share us with the world. Let us be, what was it? Let us be more of a superconductor for the world.
Yeah.
Kelly, if people want to find out more information about you or get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do it?
Let's see. My Facebook page is primarily my practice here in Maine, but it's a great way to stay in touch. It's Dr. Kelly Maine, DrKellyMaine. And I'll have to get my Instagram together. I have an Instagram and I can't remember what the handle is, so I have to get that for the next time.
All right. And Stephanie, if people want to get in touch with you?
www.powerinjoy, powerinjoy.com. And if you'd like, I'd love to chat with you. I have a 30-minute free discovery session.
Excellent. You can always get in touch with me. You can follow me or write me a message on my Instagram. I'm at Collin, COLLIN _Daniels, DANIELS _Worster, WORSTER. And you can also send emails to the podcast. If you have something you'd like to say about the podcast and you want to just write to us directly, you can email us at co-creation station, which is all together with no dashes or anything, 1111, so that's 4 number ones, at gmail.com. And we'd love to hear from you. But thank you so much for listening. If you've listened to the audio version on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, whatever you get your podcasts on, thank you so much for watching. If you've watched us on the Co-Creation Station YouTube channel, we hope you have an abundant, wonderful, and fun-filled week. And we'll see you next time on Co-Creation Station. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Have a good week.
Bye. Thank you.